from supporting Israel and Zionism, and he was gladly, or not gladly, but he was willing and actively doing it, letting his the Zionist donors go away. They just flipped and they became 100% Zionist organization, and they're lying about his record, and they're caught lying about so many things, to the point where Blake Nefta can't even tell you where he was that day when they got off the plane, and where he was for hours and hours when Charlie was doing his interview in Salt Lake City, and then he lied about where he was that night. And now we have the lady who gave the camera the video of what was supposed to be Tyler Robinson's Dodge Challenger. She said the person inside it was a bald-headed guy with 3 other people. So they're just lying constantly, and again, that goes to that they're complicit in the cover-up.
Well, I will say, I've been surprised to see what looks like a 175-degree change of course from where I think Charlie was. And I know because I interacted with Charlie over the question of the Iran war, which he was, of course, dead set against. And he was in the president's ear, told me he spent 2 full days at the White House trying to persuade the president not to attack Iran. And what I don't know what to make of what TPUSA is doing, nor do I follow them particularly, but it does look to me like Charlie was headed one way and TPUSA is now headed almost.
For warm homes and hot meals, you need energy that handles it all. Natural gas delivers versatile energy that keeps Maine moving. Summit Natural Gas.
The inverse direction, and that could mean anything, but it does go. It speaks to the fact that Charlie's death was an important historical event, because Charlie had the ear of young conservatives. He was obviously a powerhouse with respect to his ability to persuade. He was very decent to people. His campus events, he was very pointed in his critiques of other people, but he was very decent to them personally. And to see his absence, and we just don't have a replacement for Charlie.
There won't be a replacement. And I said it back in the day, but this was a preemptive presidential assassination. And I appreciate what Jimmy's saying in that first of all, people lie. People lie sometimes for no better reason. Sometimes, to protect themselves. Sometimes to protect others. They lie after the fact. They lie when they don't have to. The fact that people lied about the text messages where Charlie was expressing frustration with donors and expressing the need to turn his back or to change his views on Israel, to come to the conclusion that that's evidence that Israel killed him, as opposed to that's evidence that TPUSA doesn't want to tarnish his reputation after he's dead and can no longer defend himself. That's where you get your motivated reasoning to come to what I would call the wildly more outlandish and as of yet unsubstantiated theory, as opposed to the more likely one, which is, they knew that this would be embarrassing, that Charlie was talking like this in text messages, and they didn't want it to come to light. And that people say, well, he was against the war in Iran, and now that the war in Iran took off after he was killed, that's evidence that he was killed so that the war could occur. Again, it's arguing from the conclusion and not towards it, while also ignoring the exact same analogous argument, which is he was very critical of the trans 2S LGBTQIA plus community. He had threats of violence repeatedly in the past. We've lived in the last 2 years of acts of shootings from trans shooters. And so,
bring that to fruition.
Because we ended up going to war with Iran, that's the evidence that he was killed because of his opposition to the war in Iran, versus that exact rationale applies with the evidence that we have, or at least prima facie, of those who look like they were involved. So it's when you want to come to the conclusion, you'll come there if it means treating a certain set of facts differently than others and preferring those that you do. But once he's dead, and once that element of opposition to the war in Iran is out, don't expect him not to exploit that tragedy. And I say them being an administration, not TPUSA. TPUSA, I think that's just going to go with the political flow.
Well, okay, look, obviously, the war in Iran isn't evidence in any classic sense. But if you play through, just never mind the particulars of the crime. Charlie Kirk is dead set against a war in Iran. I believe that was a very wise position of his, and in fact that was the substance of our exchange. We were in agreement that this must be avoided at all costs because it's a disastrous mistake. After he's killed, the very war that he wished to prevent happens. And what we don't have is how would Charlie have reacted to the war as it was occurring, and what would have happened to the vast number of young conservatives.
When it comes to those kind of setups, I mean, there's a whole number of things. Sometimes they get the Charlie, if they really want to get rid of them, they get them to think they're being threatened and they have to off themselves and go under witness protection. So they're going to make it look like he was killed. And that's oftentimes how they get them going along with it, and then they actually really do kill him.
Lots of crimes and don't commit them, so the fact that somebody has a motive is not evidence.
And then all these other people that were going along with it and thinking that Charlie's safe somewhere.
That's where it sits for me, is I know that...
And just under witness protection, and it was all a setup. Yeah, so you never really know. You can play the guessing game all day long with that to understand how those things do happen, and there are a lot of meddlers and nasty fucking people.
They got their war. In spite of the fact that the American public did not want it. And Charlie Kirk had a disproportionate influence over a large, important constituency that constituency is now in the hands of folks who are much more supportive of this policy.
There is a recording of Charlie Kirk from May, I think it's May of 2025, where he was asked about who he feared killing him, and he said, I don't fear the leftists, I don't fear some purple-haired person on campus, we always get these threats. He said, who I fear is the people who I have a relationship with. So he's basically saying he's fearing people that are inside his sphere, insiders. That's who he really feared. He also had wanted an accounting, because there's all kinds of financial chicanery. If you watch Wolves of Wall Street, who has delineated this down to the button, that there was all kinds of financial chicanery happening inside TPUSA, that Charlie, it's like he was just waking up that he was living in a Truman Show. And so he had ordered a Doge-style accounting, which hasn't happened since his death, and no one cares. And so those people have a lot, people who are implicated in that have a lot of reason to go along with this cover-up, and had a lot of so there's people are just ignoring all that. So, and it follows, I mean, Israel has, and it's not a crazy conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy theory, it's not crazy, because they have a history of assassinations. They brag about it, and he was the one guy that was standing in the way. Tucker Carlson also said that he was the first casualty of the Iran war. He was standing in the way, and they had to get rid of him. In fact, they tried to bribe him. They tried to give him $150 million to change course. He wouldn't change course. A lot of people said he was more important than the RNC, the TPUSA under Charlie Kirk. So they knew he was a huge problem, and what do they do with huge problems? They assassinate them. And so that makes sense. That it's not, again, it's a conspiracy theory. It's not a crazy conspiracy theory. In fact, it makes sense.
First, it was Graham Plattner's problems with women. And now, Troy Jackson.
According to a police report, Troy Jackson kicked down a door, punched a man in the face, and pushed his ex-girlfriend.
Well, yeah, you look at like the Lang character and those other ones, and those kind of popular peddling, eventful seats. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Go back around to the left.
Yeah, I started at another cover. I like the way it looks.
But that's not.
He's the head of counterterrorism.
No, I appreciate that, but the evidence is not that they didn't look into it. The evidence is that Joe Kent was told, had his investigation shut down, and then the only question is whether or not the FBI did any investigation, and whether or not anyone's going to rely on whatever findings that they produced from their investigation. But again, nobody's denying the fact that we have not had sufficient answers in terms of the scope of the investigation into the other people who may or may not have been involved. But everything you said, okay, so it's that he said he was not nervous about the trans community killing. That's factually, I think it's factually incorrect.
Yeah, it started out, still had a little bit of the red in it.
The security at all of these events. He wasn't having the security to protect the Israelis. He was having security to prevent from trans activists who resort to violence, as in the question that he was answering when he was actually killed, Jimmy. So I agree. Like you could build the theory. You just don't have any evidence. There is no evidence yet to substantiate it, other than the absence of evidence.
Well, there is that guy Harrison who tweeted. He said that Charlie said that Israel will kill him if he turns against them. He did turn against them. He did turn down. And then also that he said, "I'm afraid they're going to kill me." Didn't he also text that people? I'm afraid. Didn't say who they were, but there is video and audio of him saying he didn't think it was going to be leftists.
First of all, he obviously thought leftists would have been the problem because A, he got the security at all of these events, which were leftist events, and B, he was answering a question on trans gun violence when he was killed. Now, they're going to kill me is also like, how many times have people said, I won't feel like killing my kids or whatever. It's not clear. I appreciate he said it. And then, so he said it. Then it's a question of who's the they? Was it a metaphorical or a physical kill? Like they're going to kill me if I abandon this cause.
No, I think the clip is pretty clear that he's talking about what he fears, not in terms of blowback, but in terms of for his life. I think I would have to look at the clip again, but I'm pretty sure it's clear. Obviously, it's not evidence, but I will tell you, if somebody says, I fear for my life, and then they're murdered, I'm very interested in who it was they were afraid of. It's not evidence, but it is a pattern worth paying attention to. I do think it is important, because because the question of Israeli involvement has been raised. If you say, the Americans attacked Iran, I have the sense of, well, wait a minute. Not only did I not support this, but I don't think a majority of my countrymen supported this. I think a power structure that acts in spite of the will of the American people did this. And I think the same thing is true of Israel, and I think that we have to think of it in those terms. In other words, I see my country as controlled by a de facto mafia, basically an organized crime syndicate. I think the same thing is true of Israel. I think Charlie was concerned about it. If you go back and you look at what he said on the Patrick Bet-David podcast about October 7th, his concerns that story was not an accurate rendering of how the attack came to be. So let's just say this is obviously very dangerous territory. I don't want to accuse a nation full of people that clearly had nothing to do with the murder of Charlie Kirk of even being on the list of potential suspects. But I do have concerns that something controls Israel, something controls the U.S. There's a relationship between those two things. I don't think the thing that controls Israel could have done this in the U.S. without the thing that controls the U.S. signing off on it. I don't know how that works. I do take very seriously what Joe Kent said. And, what you're calling the absence of evidence, Viva, there's an absence of evidence partly because there is a clear attempt not to find evidence.
Someone just said it's funny that they recently opened up a Popeyes nearby, and we have no Panda Express, and we see no Popeyes ads, but a lot of Panda Express commercials. And kind of like Sonic.
Off a wide range of possibilities just simply doesn't function. It declares roofs too steep or whatever.
Yeah, I do too. I really like how that
and
together.
we find ourselves there once again.
Can I also just say that Joe Kent also said on my show, I played him the clip that I've been playing since 2016 when Donald Trump was actually critical of the intelligence community, and Chuck Schumer, who was then the head of the Democratic Party, was on Rachel Maddow's show, and he said for a guy who thinks he's really smart, he's being really dumb to criticize the intelligence community because they've got 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. And so now if Rachel Maddow wasn't a military-industrial complex plant, she would have then followed up, well, then who do they work for? Because that implies that they don't work for the president, and the president has to look over his shoulder because they control, the tail wags the dog. And so I asked Joe Kent, I played that clip for him, and I said, so if they don't work for the president, which obviously they don't, Chuck Schumer, head of the Democratic Party in 2016, knew they didn't work for the president, and he should be fearful of them. I asked him, who do they work for? And Joe Kent said that it's some kind of a deep state corporate kind of oligarchy thing. I can't quote him exactly, but he also concurred that the intelligence community, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, doesn't work for the president. They don't work for the American people. And we all know the CIA was started by a handful of, Wall Street lawyers. It was concocted by them. So they're probably working for the same moneyed oligarch international interests as they always have been. So that's why this is a big problem. But one more thing before I let it slip, and I mentioned it before, but the evidence, like the necklace, they cleaned the necklace, gave it back to Erica. His bloody microphone, it went on tour. So instead of it being logged into evidence until the trial, it went on tour and it was completely bastardized or adulterated, however you want to put it. These things are not normal in a criminal investigation. And they gave his phone back to his wife immediately. None of it makes sense. It all points towards a cover-up. And then you have the crown jewel, Joe Kent, saying he was stopped from investigating it.
Because those people are usually aren't in a murder
personal belongings back after they've
someone's
done
killed.
whatever they need to do.
Wouldn't those people usually be
it's
the
not abnormal. And so the only question is whether or not it's abnormal in this particular case. And I think
so
people
it's
are operating on the basis that it was because it happened and
shows
not
you the lack
it was
of
because it happened in a way that was anomalous.
awareness
I won't speak to it, but they give the personal belongings back to someone after a crime when they deem that they've done what they need to do to those items. Same thing with the car, same thing with the crime scene. They release it to the university. 4 days is not anomalous. So,
do we know that that's standard practice with a phone?
Thank you.
My understanding, I mean, I understood it as the answer being yes, but contested. And so people are going to say, well, more or less depending on the circumstances. This also will presumably come out at trial, and so some of the stuff might be premature in terms of deriving too many conclusions, let alone conclusions that are supported by the absence of evidence. But Brett, going back to what you said, the evidence is the absence of evidence because they're not letting us look in the right places. Even when it came to the cover-up at what I believe is definitively a cover-up, but we'll let it happen on purpose at Butler, people ask questions in terms of who was training Thomas Crooks, not in a total absence of evidence, but rather after they found a commencement of evidence that he was at a firing range or a shooting range that routinely had law enforcement and other, I won't say intelligence, but other members of government training there. I appreciate the argument. We don't have the evidence because they won't let us get the evidence, and that's the best evidence to date. There still has to be the slightest substantiation of some of these accusations if they're to be taken seriously and not to be used as the pretext to say, well, now we don't have to answer any questions because you're asking really, really outlandish ones for which you don't have the slightest shred of evidence.
Well, I agree, but I would just point out, this is why I think I'm the lonely voice on this. This is why a scientific toolkit is the right one. We are not in a milieu where we can adjudicate this, but we are in a milieu where we can reason about it. And so, considering means, motive, opportunity, that's standard practice. Advancing multiple hypotheses and falsifying them when the evidence is inconsistent, which leaves a smaller number of hypotheses to be tested, and noting that we are on the back foot because the investigatory apparatus that should have been surfacing evidence and pursuing leads and would be able to answer these questions is manifestly uninterested in doing so. So the public is in effect doing heroic work trying to do the forensics on an event where they're hobbled by the fact that they can't subpoena witnesses, they can't look at evidence, have it independently evaluated. We have to work from what we can cobble together, and that is a disadvantaged position that we shouldn't be in, but we don't have a choice.
They say higher education is outdated, irrelevant, but at Grand Canyon University...
So even when we were out here, with your car boxed in, you were scared to come out to the cops. Why would somebody shoot you if you got out when we're telling you to get out? What were you scared of? Why? I'm sorry to hear that. That wasn't me. I don't know anything about that. But do you understand that when cops give you instructions or commands that you're supposed to follow them? You're sorry? Who is this guy? Huh? Okay, what's his name? What? Jay? Okay. What's Jay's deal? How long you known him? Barely started dating him? How long ago? Huh? Oh yeah, I see this guy, I know. How long did you start dating Jay?
Huh?
Not even at all. Not even the slightest bit. I'm just trying to ask you questions. And the only reason I'm speaking loud is because it is louder out here, and you're speaking quiet. I just want to make sure you hear my question. But by no means am I upset with your method.
I'm not yelling at you!
Oh, just very, very good.
There's a lion roaring in my ear.
No?
It might be the devil.
Sometime before that. When was that?
Here, I got our second row going.
Because he's run for me in that car several times.
Thank you. I really like it too.
Okay, what did he say when I spiked the tires?
I love doing this.
Crazy person who in the oncoming lanes on quarters. People drive 60 miles per hour in this road. And you weren't scared of that?
You know, that's the funny thing is, I love doing this anyways, and I have made like 3 in the last week or so, couple weeks.
Yeah.
Might wear, might not. If someone wanted one, that would make me really happy, and I'd love to give it to them. I know, and then you have some people that would be like, ew, gross, I wouldn't want a scarf made by them, probably has cooties. And then there are other people that would say they'd pay good money for it. Or I'd be like, I'd be happy just to give it to them. I think it'd be cool if someone would actually want one. And if they really liked it, and it's keeping them warm, or giving them style, or whatever joy they're getting out of it. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? I know, and then what happens is over time, when people say, hey, that's pretty cool. Would you make me one? I'll pick the colors. Can I pick the colors? Well, yeah, but it'll cost you. This takes a long time to do, you know? Price is going up. It's more in demand. Now I got a whole list of people that want one, so... Well, number 5 is offering me 10 times what number 1 is offering me, so...
She entered a not guilty plea and was released on bond to await trial. However, after she failed to show up in court, her bond was revoked.
And so the story goes.
That warrant was served on April 10th, 2024, after she was arrested again.
You're welcome.
We don't try. People don't even believe the DNA reports, the autopsy. Nobody's going to believe anything, even if the FBI says, "We've done 2 weeks of it. Here's everything meticulously cataloged." No one's going to believe that either. So we're at a point where, because of the lack of faith in the institutions, no matter what they do, it will be part and parcel of the conspiracy, no matter what they do.
Yeah, I think that's a strong point. I will tell you, I'm still rattled by the discovery that you put honey in your coffee, so I'm going to take your point with a grain of salt.
I'm told it's healthier than putting sugar in.
I'm sure
At least it makes me feel better.
I'm going to try it and see whether or not it's evidence of your having lost your mind. But anyway, I will report back on that. Maybe it's going to be great, and I will join you in putting honey in my coffee. All right. Anything else that you wish to say before we wrap this up?
No, I'm going to have fun reading the comments, but
I wouldn't read them if I were you.
I sure hope they help these kids here in Augusta, Maine. Been fucked and tortured for years.
9/11, Building
all these
7.
Druggies play their
I've
fucking
been
games.
Through
business ventures.
Seth Rich.
They're building
through
their
the
lives
Syrian
and
gas
careers.
attacks.
You leave them alone.
I've been through the Ukraine war. I've been through COVID. I've been through Joe Biden's not
They're
demented.
supplying a
I
good
was called
service.
crazy and a crazy
From
conspiracy.
heroin
But
to
for all
honey.
of that, immediately
Isn't that
attacked. You
cute?
were immediately attacked. And the same thing is happening here. And people calling me QAnon and calling me crazy and worse than that.
I'm not saying
just
anything bad
randos,
about it.
by
It
the
just
way,
helps
right?
people
Like,
understand ties
prominent
and
people.
connections.
And it's an
why
obvious
people turn their
coordinated
heads
attack
to certain things and are
or
so
coordinated
focused
defense of TPUSA and the FBI narrative with certain
They're good people.
influencers
You
happening,
need to
going
know.
out and lying, blatantly lying, and why were they even invited into the courtroom and the whole deal. So yeah, it's just there's just no way to spin
problem.
this
Leave
that
them
this
alone.
isn't a cover
The
up
other one's getting
and
upset
that
with us
we're
for
not
speaking the
we
truth.
may never find out
The
who
proper
did it because the
authorities need
people
to
who have the
address the
ability
abuse here.
to look into it are not looking into
I
it.
think because so many of them
I'll
help to
just
aid
add-
and abet them
I'll only add one thing to
for
that.
other
I've been through a lot of those,
reasons,
but not all of them, just 'cause
with
you're
good
old.
intentions.
And this
Yeah,
is
they're
like what I
fucking
call
sick
the
people.
litigation trauma. When you get
Proper
involved in
authorities
litigation
need
for
to
too long,
address it, that's all
eventually
I know.
everybody's in on it. Everybody's against you, even your own lawyer, your wife, the judge.
That's not what this is. This
No,
is the
but
pattern.
even-
It's called pattern recognition.
Well, but I'm recognizing another pattern here. Even during COVID, when people were coming out saying the virus doesn't exist, that was the type of conspiracy that actually undermined the legit conspiracy, which is that it originated from gain of function in a lab in Wuhan, China. People saying it's, the snake venom. There were people even during COVID who were getting conspiracy psychosis and manufacturing destructive and distracting conspiracies that ultimately just discredited those who were actually trying to get at the actual truth and who had legitimacy to their theory. So I say all of this. You learn from history, but when you become what's the word I'm looking for? You can become hypersensitive to certain allergens and not tolerant to them or not able to deal with them properly. And I think some people have gotten a little bit too far
A lot
down
of
that
people
side
have
of the conspiracy psychosis
hypersensitivities
this time
and
around.
things.
All right. That's an excellent place to leave it. I appreciate
More susceptible.
the care with which you both did this.
I mean, you can build a tolerance
and
to
your
anything.
good
You don't have to
faith, I
hide
think,
from
is
it.
evident.
I know we
And
can
I think
have,
the lesson
if
here
it's
is
overwhelming
that
and compacted
we need to
throughout the
apply
day,
a very
it can
careful
start to become
rigorous
irritating,
to
like lots of
consideration of
perfumes and
conspiracies.
then
That's the only
chemicals,
way,
cleaning supplies,
to
not
do
enough
so
ventilation,
in a contested
contributing
environment like this.
factors.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it
Eva
doesn't mean
Fry,
get rid of
Jim
anything
Dore,
or
thank you so much for joining me.
act like a total
Okay, my
cynical
pleasure.
freak.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good to
some
see you
people
all,
do, and many of
great
them do
work,
it on
Brett.
purpose.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Be well,
Yeah, because
everyone.
to piss people off, and then they get angry with those of us that just try to bring the simplicity through. Yeah, understanding,
matters.
decency, morality, respect. Right, it's the same reason when you go into a hospital in certain areas, no harsh chemicals or perfumes or cell phones beyond this point. Why? Oh, isn't that neat? As it starts to unravel. I like how it does that pattern. Yeah, I'm gonna work on it more later. You're welcome. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I really hope so, because I mean, if it's not bad enough, those things that need to be addressed, then you have the issues with the vaccines and the SSRIs that everybody's avoiding, like the plague. Bunch of nasty pill popping, promoting motherfuckers, huh? Carry on. It's your right. And hopefully people have a choice as to whether they take it or not. But they're getting them younger and younger, and they have these psycho mothers that get pissed off at the least little bit of vulgarity or racism they hear and are killing their children at an alarming rate. And then they protect them and say it wasn't their fault. They had PTSD. The little brat probably deserved it. I know, just like they protect this sick fuck who beat up a toddler in the tub and left black hand marks on him. It was just a whack. A little brat probably deserved it. It's okay. What about them trying to kill me and the dog's leg blowing up? You had a stroke for whatever reason. And the dog had an ulcer. Okay. Right, so I mean, you can carry on with all that. What about them vaccinating our children behind our back in 2013? They had to do that because we're crazy and so are the experts, and we were going to bring back measles and make you eat maggots! Yeah, you sick, nasty motherfuckers. The proper authorities need to address this. No, for real. Yeah, today would be good. Anytime. We're here. We're not holding our breath on it. Yeah, I hope so. You have any other questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions as to how we can get people to address those things? That would be great.
What was it? The COVID, national emergency was one of 11. Not popular. Love it. If you're on that side.
Yes,
so
thank you
California
so
Democrats
much.
don't like this guy. Some of them probably like him. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a different Democrat in Florida than it is in California. I got a bunch of other things I can say about him. But voted for Lieberman, if I'm not mistaken. I got a bunch of other things. Anyways, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great to have you on the podcast. Adam's got a lot of good things to say about you.
I wrote him.
We had to get a briefing from Adam.
When you really
Adam
start
said,
gearing
he's a good
in,
guy. He's
good
this, he's that.
positioning
So
and
if you
stuff.
need an agent, if you
So when we can gauge into different muscles and tissues,
you should come on the podcast.
you're almost like giving your tissues and organs and lymph nodes a little massage.
Like there's something going on there. I'm not understanding what you're saying.
It's really good, I think, for chemical. I mean, you don't have to do it that way.
I'm betting on
I mean, there are probably many other movements and things you could do for that.
All right. Okay, so story-wise,
Yeah, you can just take a
a lot of
pill
weird things going on, folks. If you have
and feel sedated
AI or Bitcoin or
and
XRP
believe that
or
that's you
anything,
feeling better,
since
and it's
October,
helping.
when crypto hit its highest.
Is it helping the pressure in your head?
Wiped out.
Migraines.
Just yesterday,
Your circulation.
$600 billion was wiped out in the stock
Tell
market
me.
in equity. We're
Tell
not
me
talking
about
crypto.
it.
I think $700 billion was wiped out this week from crypto. Bitcoin is down to 60,000. A lot of people are panicking. We'll talk about that. I'm sure there's some thoughts
How about this?
on
Can
what's
we do
going
this?
on there. Amazon stock falls 10% on $200 billion spending forecast. Earning missed. All the layoffs, that's a concern. A lot of people are talking about the layoffs. Clinton's come out. That thing's a back and forth on Twitter with Hillary specifically. Not
You know what?
necessarily
How about we
Rob,
just
if I'm not
ignore the
mistaken, it's
basic
Hillary did this
understandings
bill
and promote
asking Comer,
twerking? How
They
about that?
want the hearing to be public.
Yeah,
Comer
because
wants
they're
to do it
stupid
private.
and they
She
don't want
wants it
to
to be
believe the
public.
truth, so
I don't
we'll
know
just
if
rub
this
our
is
asses in
posturing.
their face.
I don't know what's going on. At the same time, yesterday, the president was complimentary about Bill Clinton. He says, I don't like how they go after Bill sometimes. They kind of give him a hard time. He is so interesting with the things that he does. We'll cover that as well. What is SAVE Act? SAVE Act. CNN polling finds
Yeah, Augusta,
strong
Maine,
voter
Governor
right
Hill
support
Mansion.
among
Her
Black
name's
Americans
Mary.
and
The
other
abuse
groups.
here
We'll
needs to
cover
be
that as well,
addressed.
and a few
The
other stories
fraud.
that we got here.
Whatever you want to talk
Trump
about, there's a lot of
administration
issues.
halts
All I know is they
small
need to get our
business
children
nationals,
away from the
requires
monsters that have been
full American
abusing them for
ownership.
years. That is very
Chinese
sick, disgusting, and
biolab
disturbing, and I don't even like to
Las
think
Vegas home
about the
sparked
abuse they've already
federal
been through.
investigation
And how
with
people try to act
SWAT
like it's not
response.
happening
Then he got
and say they're good people and they're well taken care of with your little clips at nasty events. They pack your shit and get the fuck out of here.
Now, of course,
For real.
that would never happen
For
in
real.
LA. This is allegations, allegedly, who knows? We'll address that. J.D. Vance, somehow,